What's going on, people? Welcome to Spoiler Alert for Ant-Man. I'm your host, Tony Polanco, and tonight I'm joined by Chris Seeley.
Hey, what's up? Look at the daylight. It's so
Crazy.
bright.
They can see us now. And Mr. JakeJames Lugo.
How's it going, everybody? Hope you guys are in for a good podcast.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Always. All right, people, so we're here to talk about the Ant-Mans, the little movie that could. Dun, dun, dun. So as always, we're going to start off with our quick little thoughts, and then we're going to jump right into the whole thing. I was a little bit worried about this movie because it's about Ant-Man. Let's just be honest, like, Ant-Man? Really? But at the same time, Marvel already, did a good job proving that they can make things work that shouldn't work, like a talking raccoon and a talking tree. So, yeah, this was another one for me. It was like, this was really, really good. I was very surprised by it. Pleasantly surprised. So that's my quick little thoughts there. JJ, what about you? Quick thoughts.
To be honest with you, I liked it. I thought it was a fun movie to watch. Definitely not as better as some of the other Marvel movies that come out in the past. Not the team-up movies, but more specifically the movies that focus on a specific character that was going to be part of the Avengers and such. But it was overall very good. One of the things that I like about Marvel now, especially coming in like right before and coming after Avengers 2, is that now every single one of these superhero movies that are relating to their bigger Marvel universe feels like an own niche type of movie to a specific genre that's still connected to the whole Marvel universe. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that because
We'll definitely get into that. We'll definitely get into that.
this one specifically, I felt like it was kind of like more of a little bit of an action comedy, where it had its action elements to it, but there was a stronger sense of humor in this movie than I felt than in the Avengers movie and some of the other Marvel movies, Captain America and such, that I really thought made this movie kind of stand out. And by the time I finished watching it, by the time the end credits and the after credits kind of finished up, I was really excited to see like where this character or Ant-Man was specifically going to go next in the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I liked it.
Definitely. All right, Chris, quick thoughts.
I went in thinking that this might be Marvel's, that this may be the one that they flopped, but it really was well done. It was well written. I think that using the kind of lesser-known characters, the B and C characters, like Guardians, in a more a comedy, like having more comedy in it, definitely works. This definitely was more lighthearted than the other movies. And I enjoyed it. I think everybody in there did their job well. Michael Douglas is a great actor. Paul Rudd played his part well. He had his fun little crew. I enjoyed those guys a lot. I thought, like, wait, who are these guys? And then they actually ended up working out really well. Everybody in there, Kate from Lost. I'm like, oh shit, it's Kate from Lost. Like, shit, she did a good job too. So I liked everybody in there. Maybe with the exception of the main bad guy, the bald dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll get into
I don't
him.
know. I wasn't thinking him too much, but other than that, the writing was really good. They lost Edgar Wright as the director, and that guy Peyton Ward took over. He did a good job. I like the CG was well done. His micro world, and him interacting with everything, that was well done. There was a good balance of CG in there where it felt very very good. It didn't look weird. They made it work. Like, I was surprised that scene in the bathtub where he first tests the suit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm impressed. All
right, so there we go. And let's get into the nitty gritty of it. So what I found interesting was usually, people don't really talk about this too much, but Marvel movies are always a specific genre. You notice that, right? Like the Avengers movies, those are your actual superhero movies, right? Captain America, the first one was a war movie. The second one was a espionage kind of political thriller. Thor are fantasy movies. Guardians is a space movie. This one was a heist movie. And I think, given who Ant-Man is, I think this was the best way of presenting him, because you can't really have him be a traditional superhero off the bat. You got to put him in a situation where he works best. And I think having it be a heist movie, having all the heist setup, all that other stuff, I think that was definitely the best way of presenting this guy. And also with the whole super heroic things, like right from the beginning, they established the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You had, you had Hank Pym in 1980, looking like Wall Street era Michael Douglas, by the way. You had Peggy Carter in there. You had the original Howard Stark. And they set up the whole thing there. I like that. And then they set up Scott Lang. He was like this criminal, but Hank Pym, he saw something in him. And I guess we could get into that a bit. Because on the second viewing, I was like, oh, okay, that's why he wants to help this guy. But yeah, I like the fact that it was a heist movie. Jay, I guess you could expand on that a little bit because you were talking about that before. How this is a not a different this is a specific type of genre movie.
Yeah, and this really kind of like shows Marvel flexing their creative muscles and really utilizing what they have or the hand they've been dealt with, because obviously it's been said over and over again, if they had access to their really big superheroes where they had creative control of them, we'd be getting those types of movies as opposed to movies like this with Ant-Man, with Guardians of the Galaxy and such. But Ant-Man, again, you mentioned it's a heist movie, which is very true, and I think this was the great choice to go specifically with this Ant-Man, specifically because a lot of people were really complaining before the movie came out that Hank Pym wasn't going to be the center focus, again, relating to Ultron and relating to everything else involving the Avengers. But I think it was the right choice here because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of like its own Marvel entity, and it has a lot more freedom to kind of play around and choose the type of continuity it's going to go with, and I think they made the right choice with that. And again, I think I'm probably one of the very few people who wasn't really a fan of the guy's, his small group of other thieves, his other burglars or whatnot that helped him out during some of the heists and such. I thought in the beginning they were kind of a little bit throwaway, but as the movie kind of progressed on, it got more towards the middle to the end of it, I kind of started to see a little bit much more relevance in them. They were really just there for comedic relief, especially that one Spanish guy where he was just like telling the stories and stuff, which got a lot of laughs out of everybody, like unexpectedly so in the theater where I was at. But overall, I still think it was fun. I could have also dealt without showing the sections of the Wasp when Michael Douglas, when Hank Pym specifically was back during the 40s, during World War II.
Really? You didn't like those?
Hearing the Wasp actually trying to disarm the missile, I could have actually dealt without that and actually just have Michael Douglas be shown just talking to the other characters about that. I felt it would have had a little more emotional impact because if you notice in the picture that they showed of him and the Wasp, they actually blocked out her face. They actually didn't show her full face like that, and so it kind of kept that mystique, and I thought that would have been a little bit stronger and would have been a lot more emotionally impactful for the audience and for myself if they kind of like took that out and just like kept it as just him just talking in that house, seeing the reactions of the other characters, seeing the reaction of his daughter and such. I felt that would have been a little bit better. But overall, I still love the movie, though. I still had a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that because I actually completely disagree. I think you needed to have that one scene where you got to see the original Wasp. You got to see how she disappeared because, just talking about it is cheesy. It's like, when you're watching Star Trek, like, oh, we've been hit by missiles. Oh, they're flying around. It's like they're just talking. You're not seeing any of this shit. You need to actually see it. And I like that you got to see Wasp. Because now you get to see why she was important. You can't just have it just be like a dialogue thing.
Also, that scene was important because it set up that regulator and that quantum world thing he was talking about. Like,
yeah, exactly.
If you shrink too far, you
Here's the thing, though. I felt he explained a lot of that beforehand, and we kind of got a sense of what that was, and he made it very clear. I just felt like if you're talking about the emotion and the drama between the characters, I felt like I didn't need to see it because the way he talked about her, the way he kind of described her and described like what they did when he was talking to his daughter, and I forgot the guy's name again, Paul Rudd, the character that he played, the main character and such. That the way he was kind of like describing his wife, the way he talked about it, the way how like you could see visually on his face and like how he was reacting, just even the thought of it and the thought of like how she died and such, I felt that was better. And again, it's a small nitpick, and again, it looked cool for the scene that it was showing them and like what she did and how she heroically, and tragically died and such. But taking that out, that would have added just even more drama to that. That's what I feel like there were little things like that.
Right, I guess we just have to disagree because I
don't agree with that because this isn't a stage play. This is a big budget movie.
But it's still characters that are at the center of it besides the action and stuff. And
that scene didn't take away from the characters at all. It actually impacted it even more. But
that's how she actually died. Like that moment had to be explained not only for the audience to set up a moment at the end of the movie, but also had to be explained that he's coming out to his daughter and finally saying, this is how your mother died, I've been bullshitting you, this is what we were actually doing. And for an audience, especially an audience of 2015, we're not sitting down at a Broadway play where the actors have to convey all this stuff and they can't show it. We're sitting in the theater, you can't expect your audience to now go, oh, that's how it happened. They have to see it. It has to be shown.
Well, I disagree with that because there are plenty of other movies that even, again, in heist movies and such, or just in general, not just was in musical theater and stuff like that. I think that's an unfair assessment, an unfair comparison. But there's still moments in other movies where it's just the characters talking and describing and seeing the drama between them in that conversation that is still just as effective, if more effective, than just openly seeing it. I think maybe if you're going to look at it that way, that's probably just a problem.
Maybe a heist movie from the 60s, like not now.
No, I don't think that's a fair.
But I don't want to.
Compared to Ocean's 11 or any of the Ocean sequels, compared to the remake of Italian Job.
Saying though, okay, we're talking about again. What I'm saying, what made it effective in that moment.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, because you're saying that basically you wanted them just to talk about it, and not show it. But I disagree. But I want to get bogged down.
That's not what I was saying though. Okay, but either way, again, agree to disagree.
Yeah, okay, so let's move on. Okay, I want to talk about Scott Lang because I really like the way he was introduced. You know, the guy was in jail and stuff, and then afterwards, you know, he tried to go and, you know, try to get a regular job, and he couldn't do it, so he had to go to his heist buddies to get a job, and you got to see how badass this guy was before he even put on a suit. He was doing all this crazy shit, climbing up the building, you know, disabling the locks and all that other crazy shit. I really, you know, highly enjoyed all that. You got to see what he was really all about, you know. What do you think about that, guys?
I thought it was fun. I liked that he thinks on his feet. Like he gets in the house and then the fingerprint reader, right? And then he figures out, oh, I need a fingerprint. And then he doesn't like abort the mission. He's like, all right, I'm gonna figure this out. And he makes that little cast of the thumbprint. He gets in. Then he get to the safe door and it's like, oh shit, this is like some old school real deal fucking safe. I gotta figure out how to open it. And then he comes up with something else, and that shows like how intelligent he is. He's not just like a really good thief. He's not just parkour man, you know. He actually has a brain too, and he figures shit out. Like even on the fly, he improvises, and that's very important through the movie. Like he'll improvise things, he'll figure things out. He could change plans on the fly.
Yeah, we should say he's a burglar, as he calls himself.
It's like a pussy.
There was a lot of nods to like a Robin Hood-esque type of thing where they kept talking about like, you know, his past stuff. They kept mentioning how he was just stealing stuff from rich people and just giving it to people that were needy and such. And that was cool. That was a good way of like having the audience kind of connect with him and explain like, listen, this is the why he chooses this type of life and why he kind of gets so much stuff, you know, dealing with the custody thing with his daughter, with his ex-wife, you know, and her new husband who just happens to be a cop. Like that.
Yeah.
That I thought was like pretty cool.
Yeah, you think that's why because when I was watching the movie, I didn't understand why his daughter saw him as a hero. Maybe because she knows he's a thief, but maybe she knows, hey, he steals from the rich, gives to the poor. So maybe that's why she looks up to him like that, little Cassie.
I'm not sure. I mean, I never really got a sense that she understood like what he was doing and such, especially like in the scene where she was asking about how, what was it her stepfather was actually going to go find her daddy. I mean, there was a humorous moment there where she's like, I hope you don't find him. And such, but like earlier in the movie, I still didn't get a sense of like she really understood like what he was doing. I just think that she probably thought that again he was a cool dad, that he loved her more than anything, and again he still just went out his way to actually be there for her, regardless of all this other stuff that was going on.
Yeah, giving her ugly toys and stuff that she seems to like,
which was cute, which is very, very cute and very funny for the audience.
Yeah, I like that, but I'm gonna give her a little bit of a credit, you know, like benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna say she knew what he was doing, but she, you know, said, hey, that's her dad. He's a good guy, you know. But then obviously that whole first heist. By the way, I love the whole setup because his boy was talking about it, Luis, and then you got to hear other people talk like he does, like, yo, I know this guy and I know this dude, and then he knows this. I thought that was funny. And what is up with this guy? He's weird. He's like, yo, we were at a wine tasting thing, and then later on he's like, we were at an Art Nouveau. It's like, wait, what kind of weird criminal are you?
I thought that was fun. He's like, yo, you know I like neo-expressionism, but anyway.
Yeah. It's like, wait, what are you talking about? The most enthusiastic criminal, too, man. Like, everything, like, yo, man, we broke into your house, man, and we also stole these slushy machines, man. like dude. But, yeah, we find out later that the whole thing was just set up by Hank Pym. So, you know, I guess that's a test to you know, Scott Lang, right? To see if he could, you know, how resourceful he was, and he was resourceful. He steals the Iron Man suit, and of course, in like a typical superhero movie, he has to put the thing on, flick around with the buttons, and all of a sudden, like you said, Chris, you know, he shrinks and he's in the bathtub, and I want to talk about that because that's why I liked about the special effects in this movie. Like every time they shrank, they always showed you real world references to keep it all grounded. It wasn't like, you know, you're just floating around or anything, you know.
Yeah,
I like that. That whole thing was crazy. He's like falling through the floor because he's like this small, but he's still like 200 pounds, right? So I think that's what they were trying to say, because like all his atoms got condensed or something like that. He becomes
It's like he still had the force of when he was actually still full size, or a little bit more, because remember they mentioned that ants could lift like 5 times or like 20 times their own body weight and such. So they wanted to emphasize that regardless of like how small he was, because of like the density, because of the matter compressing, he still had enough force to really like do some damage.
Yeah, the only thing I thought about this last time, I'm like, wait, because remember, like every time he hits the floor, he always cracks it, right? Even though he's little. How's he flying around on an ant?
Wait,
how is he able to fly on an ant? He still weighs 200 pounds.
Maybe he still has control. He still. Here's the thing: it's like he has the same amount of force, if not more, when he's actually in motion. I still think that because he still has control of his strength, maybe he's just trying not to crack the ant in half. You know, there's a little suspension of disbelief right there.
Yeah, you have.
But what I will say though, in relation to that, what was cool was during the fight when he was fighting Yellow Jacket in the girl's room, when they're on the little train, and again, it looks like a really like crazy train sequence, and he's lifting up the different toys and throwing at them. Again, that was just a really cool sequence considering its context.
Yeah, I thought that was another one though. It's like they're having this epic fight, but it's really on a little toy train that was just going around. You know, the way they shot that was fantastic.
Did anybody else notice Hank Pym's tank keychain? I was like, that's got to be a real tank, because in that old footage of him being Ant-Man, that same tank with the same serial number is there shooting at him, and he punches the guy out. So I'm like, I bet that's the keychain.
I didn't catch it until they actually said it.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. I didn't know that tank was actually in that sequence.
Because it had a serial number on the tank, and the little keychain, when they showed it, it had the same number on the side. So I'm like, I bet he strengthened it.
Now, one thing that did get to me, though, is, okay, after the section where they were trying to steal the suit, and we had that whole section where the Pym building kind of like just collapsed and everything, and they mentioned about how after the section when he went to the Avengers, was it the Avengers, like, you know, hangar?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit.
And such, that he mentioned how word got around fast. One of the things that I kind of did question, and he never really answered it too much, they only mentioned Hydra, was that if S.H.I.E.L.D. actually got word of it. Only pretty much at that point, the Falcon, or the quote-unquote the Avengers at that point, was the only ones that really kind of got it. Not like anybody else. Like,
S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't
S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of dismantled at this point, but I expected more than just the Falcon to kind of know about that stuff. If Hydra immediately found out afterwards. Like, again, that was just a little pet peeve. And a little bit nitpicking with suspension of disbelief there, but it was just something I just found a little bit interesting, a little bit off.
Yeah, we'll get to that because that's an interesting point. But yeah, you know, obviously once he gets the suit, he goes into this whole training montage, which I thought was hilarious. You know, like he's scared of the ants and stuff, because think about it, they're gigantic ants to him. You know, but I did like in that instance, you know, and this will come back later too, where he kind of used his daughter, you know, because remember his whole goal is he wants to be with his daughter again. That's why he's doing this again. He used that to focus to be able to control the ants. I like that. You know, it kept him grounded in that sense. And then obviously that led to let's just get right into it. Like, you know, the big surprise, which they spoiled like a week beforehand. Falcon shows up in the movie, and I like that scene where like he flies over the Avengers thing, and then you hear the Avengers music for like a couple of seconds. I thought that was fun.
I love it because the pictures that Hank Pym has, it just looks like an old Stark hangar, and then the clouds part, you see the Avengers headquarters, and he's like, Pym, you son of a bitch! What the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this shit ain't a band, man. What is this? Yeah, but I like how they tied it all together and stuff. And then Falcon's like, "Who are you?" You know, and they didn't have the scene. He's like, "Ant-Man." He didn't do like. I think they had a weird edited version of that. He didn't go, "I know," you know. But anyway, that scene was good because it showed that, you know, even though the guy shrinks all small, he's able to beat Falcon essentially. He couldn't do anything. Like, what's he gonna? He's punching the air, and then he punches nothing. You know, and then Scott Lang comes in. He grows and beats him up and stuff. I thought the whole scene was great. You know.
Yeah. That was a fun fight.
You know, also what I thought was pretty good too, and I think Marvel's getting a little bit better about this, is that the cross-pollination between their movies, or their connection to like the big overarching Avengers movies and such, they're getting a little bit better in the way that they're handling it, where it's not overbearing. Because if you remember, one of the big things that people complained about with Iron Man 2 was that there were so many references and so many throw-ins to connect to the Avengers movie that was coming down the line. This one, and I think in a couple of the other past ones, you know, specifically Cap 2, and I think even Guardians to an extent, had a few nods and had a few references to what was going to be, or eventually is going to be, Avengers 3, which is Avengers Infinity War. This one, again, they had that small section in there, but it wasn't like it was scattered throughout the entirety of the movie, or it was like, you know, little things that were just thrown in there for the sake of just being thrown in there. This one had at least some relevance to what was going to happen for the overarching plot of Ant-Man specifically.
Yeah, it was more self-contained, even when it still had threads to the other universes, the other movies.
And still had that fan service.
Yeah, it had that, but at the same time, it was all in services. Like, why does he goes to the Avengers thing? Not because hey, it's cool to go there. It's because he needed a specific part. And I like how they were yelling at him, like, "You fucked up! Why'd you fight him? You failed." Oh yeah, did I? He had the piece and stuff.
Yeah,
Badass.
he stole that shit right in the middle of the fight. He somehow stole it.
Exactly. So yeah, that whole scene, it was great at establishing the wider Marvel universe, but at the same time, just showing how much of a badass he is. You know. And but before we get later on, I want to kind of talk about Hank Pym and Hope, because that, to me, like, at the one hand, you know, that made kind of a little bit more of the core of the movie as far as emotion goes, but at the same time, it was also funny because every single time they're fighting, it's always, you know, Scott Lang in there, like, you know, looking really awkward because he's always in the middle of it.
He's like the third wheel.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh shit, here they go again.
I will say one thing though. I liked how Michael Douglas handled Hank Pym, the character, because
yeah, I do.
I mean, he in the comics, you know, granted he's a an intelligent scientist and stuff, but he doesn't really have the kind of like bravado of like other characters like Captain America, like the Falcon, etc. This one, he was intelligent, but he was someone that still wasn't going to take crap from other characters. Like again, the beginning of the movie where he gets into an argument with one of the characters there, it just like messes up his face after he talks about his wife. That like really kind of established like, yo, Hank Pym doesn't take crap from them. I like that. That was like a pretty unexpected for like what I traditionally know about like Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Can I say something? At least he wasn't hitting his wife. Like we know he has anger problems in the comic book, right?
And I'm glad they didn't go with that. I'm glad
they didn't go. Yeah. He's still violent, but not towards women.
Yeah, he just punched the guy. Okay, all right. This Ant-Man now has a new crown for CG making people young.
Yes.
It won. I was like, holy shit. He does look like 80s Michael Douglas. Like, I don't know what they did to him, but he looked really good in that.
One question I did have, though, like during that opening section, and a couple of the times when he was talking about his time as the Ant-Man, you know, during World War II, is that they never mentioned that he worked with Captain America or anything. So I always thought could have been possible.
He was an Ant-Man in World War II. He was an Ant-Man in 1980s.
1980. Oh, okay. Because I was
also
also
Cold War stuff.
Yeah, it was the Cold War. That was
okay.
Cold War.
I didn't catch that because I thought like maybe he was actually working during that time frame, or at least like right up to the point when Captain America was lost and such. I didn't catch that.
No, because the movie is said that they lost Wasp in 1987 and. They were like, hey, Hope, she was 7 at the point, so she was born in 1980. Okay. So the whole thing, all that took place during the Cold War, essentially. All that stuff was.
That makes more sense now.
Yeah, because he's not like 90 years old, you know. But yeah, you're right. I like how, but I also like the fact that they didn't give you too much of Hank Pym because, like you said, he's a pretty boring character. He's just like, kind of mundane. Like he only has 2 accomplishments in the Marvel Universe. He created Ultron and he beat his wife. That's all he really did. That was important. No one cares about this character. But I like the way they established him and his whole relationship with Hope in this. And I like how she was mad at him because and let's face it, she was way more qualified to do this than Scott Lang was. But the whole thing was he didn't want to lose her like he lost his wife in the subatomic universe. And this is the thing I want to get to now. I think part of the reason he chose Scott Lang, besides the fact that the guy's a really good, burglar. I think it's because he kind of wanted to help him with his daughter. Because remember, he said that Hope saw him the way Cassie sees Scott, right? But he was like, maybe in a way, he was like, hey, maybe if I could repair that, it'll be like me vicariously fixing my own relationship with my daughter. I kind of got that feel off of it. Besides the whole I need to save the world thing, I think that was a little bit of in play too. And I like I said, I like their whole relationship and how they eventually patched it up later on. What do you guys think about how they pull that off?
I did like that. I got the impression in the beginning I didn't know she was faking him out. Remember, Pym goes to his building, and I guess they imply that he hasn't been there in a long time, and that the guy Cross took over, and that she treats him kind of cold and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, I get that they're having problems and shit. And then it turns out she's helping him and stuff. I think they played that really well. The only thing that was a little awkward is like, what's her name? The girl who plays Kate from Lost.
Hope.
Yeah.
Hope, his daughter.
Yeah, she didn't really adjust her levels. Like the only time she was really emotional when she started crying. That one scene when she's like, you didn't tell me about my mother, whatever. That's the only time her levels really changed. Like other than that, she was kind of like the same level, whether she was like faking and being like, oh, Cross, you're brilliant or whatever, or she was yelling at Hank Pym, or she was like punching Scott Lang in the face or whatever. She kind of didn't change her tone, so I was kind of confused. It's like, okay, I don't know where you stand right now. The only emotion she showed was when she broke down crying. And I was like, okay, there we go. There's some emotion.
Yeah, she showed a little. She showed a little bit of emotion when he brought the goat in.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! The goat.
Yeah, that was kind of sad. Or even when the guy, when the guy who plays Yellow Jacket actually used that little like gun to kind of like shrink them, but it kind of like made it into mush.
Yeah, he
that
turned
caught everybody in the theater by surprise, just like how brutal that looked like.
You know what? It's funny. Like you can see this movie pulling from a lot of movies. Remember the original RoboCop? Remember the bathroom scene? That was almost the same bathroom scene, right? Where he gets caught. Yeah, except that this time Yellow Jacket killed that dude right in the bathroom.
Yeah, he turned him into snot, basically.
Let me ask you guys this: what did you guys think of the idea that they kept mentioning that because Yellow Jacket's research, trying to replicate the formula, that I think it was, I don't know if it was necessarily the pin particles or some sort of effect from them that he was trying to replicate that affected his mind, and that's why he got so crazy and kind of like a little bit mad with power.
Let's just jump into it right now because let's talk about the worst thing about the movie. Him, Yellow Jacket, Darren Cross. Again, he was a really stupid character. Like, I didn't understand his motivations. Like, I know what they were. They just weren't displayed right. And then it's like, okay, on the one hand, they're like, oh, he's crazy because of the pin particles. But then Hank Pym was like, oh, I didn't want to work with you because you were too much like myself. So which is it? Like what?
It kind of didn't make sense to me, honestly.
That was one of my cons of the movie because Hank Pym said you were too much like me, and I figured, oh, this guy's just ambitious. He's just like another Obadiah Stane, right? He just wants to take over the company, and he has his own ambitions, and he wants money, and that's his motivation.
And I couldn't really draw a connection between like his like vendetta or his thing against Scott Lang. Like I didn't buy that. Like I don't see why he would be pissed at him. I could totally understand a little bit why he was pissed at Hank Pym, being his protege and stuff. But again, I didn't really see the necessary conflict between him.
He was mad at him because he felt like he didn't like appreciate him, but at the same time, he also saw him as a surrogate father. He wanted to make him proud. Again, which is it?
I would have bought it. I would have bought it if like he tried to do something and then Hank Pym stopped him. Like there was something like that where it was like, okay, he tried one time before to take Pym's research public or over to like investors to kind of like militarize it and like sell it off and stuff, and Pym stopped him. Then I would have understood that a little bit better, but I still didn't get the connection to the other characters.
Yeah, we needed a flashback with him and Cross. I guess pre-bald Cross, where he was young and doing stuff like JJ said, and Pym stops him from doing that. And then that would have made sense. He's pissed off, and then he's angry all those years.
I mean, he explained it. He explained it, said like, what is it? He tried to bury that research, and I understood that he knew about it and such. But I felt like there was something that should have happened there.
Right, but he buried it before he even started the company. He
exactly.
So that was the shield scene. Yeah.
So why are you mad at him for burying something when you weren't even around? You
were part of the picture.
Yeah, he really wasn't characterized. Well, go ahead.
And also, all those experiments he was doing that we saw, the ones with the goats and stuff, he was nowhere near the Pym particles, right?
Exactly.
So how was he being affected by it? I would understand if he was spraying himself with it or he was exposed to it. But I'm like, the little Asian dude next to the goat is getting more Pym particles. He doesn't look crazy.
And that's another thing too. Like the way that it was done, like when he was trying to replicate the formula and trying to find out the stuff. When the Pym particles, to me, they're interpreted as a liquid. Like I thought originally it would be like some sort of form of like radiation or something that like influences whatever they're gonna be like imposed on to make smaller and such. Like from what I understood, not one character, whether it was Scott Lang, Hank Pym, or him, actually touched that liquid or actually got affected by it directly, other than when they were actually shrinking and such. And him, specifically Yellow Jacket, only maybe shrunk, didn't get like directly in contact with something like that until like maybe 2/3 into the movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like okay, the Pym particles make you crazy, but he obviously wasn't shrinking himself because otherwise he turned to goop. They didn't have it right yet, so there was something missing in the script when it came to that point. It's like, how are you exposed to Pym particles when you're literally like 10 feet away behind glass?
And that's the thing. I don't even think the stuff with Yellow Jacket was called Pym particles. I think they were called something else. And then Hank Pym's formula was called Pym particles. I think it was something like that.
It was a variation of it. Go ahead, Chris. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I mean, I hate when movies explain things with one line. Like Hank Pym is talking to Scott Lang, and Lang's like, "Why don't you just put on the suit?" And he's like, "Well, it took a toll on me." It's like,
but I don't understand how that's possible. That was never in the comics.
No, but it's not even in the comics. Like, okay, you can't just say how it took a toll on you. How did it take a toll on you? You look fine to me.
I would have bought it I would have bought it if he related it to what happened to his wife's death. If he could have came out and said like, I was just so distraught after dealing with that, and like
Yeah,
stuff like that, it just emotionally messed me up. I
what
would
does
have
that
bought
mean,
it.
toll? What does that mean, toll? Physical, mental, what toll? What are you talking about? Chris, you're right. I hate when movies do that shit. It's like, come on, just 2 more sentences. That's it. It. Like I understand we gotta have the action, but come on, man. But yeah, I didn't like that character at all. He like the action sequences were cool, but his whole motivation was just not fleshed out at all. And I understand the guy's like a really good actor, but he didn't have enough to work with. Really, it was just. But again, Marvel seems to have this whole, except for Loki, they don't really have good villains in their movies. Let's just be honest. Like they're kind of lackluster.
Well, I think they have a couple. It's just like the bulk of them. Again, a lot of trial and error. Seems like they've been misses. This one, Obadiah Stane from the first Iron Man. Even though I love the first Iron Man movie. Was it Ivanko from Iron Man 2? Characters like that. They know they're going to be throwaways. So I feel like they don't give them enough fleshed out, nature or fleshed out writing to tell their story. So we can really kind of like care about them being a villain and such. Unlike Loki, which I think really kind of happened on a whim after the first Thor movie. Which is why, again, because so many female audience just took a liking to him. Is why I guess they decided to capitalize on it and kind of really flesh him out.
Maybe Loki's the only one that's fleshed out because he's actually been in more movies. Like they keep killing all the villains, basically.
Exactly. And
so
that could be just a pre-production thing. Again, maybe they already knew that he just wasn't going to come back for another movie, and such. They just wanted to one.
But still, you shouldn't change a villain because that's the whole reason you're doing all this. But go ahead.
Let me ask you guys a question. Like, not besides Yellow Jacket, what about the other guy that Hank Pym kind of messed up in the beginning of the movie? Because at first I thought he was going to be a villain. What happened to him? Like, he kind of almost a little bit disappeared towards the end.
They don't say shit about him. I mean, like he comes in with his Hydra voice. By the way, with the Hydra thing, they work for Hydra. It's like, wait, well, how do they work for Hydra?
How does that relate? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like they were already dismantled. Like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, if you watch the movies or if you watch Agents of Shield, Hydra is done. That's it.
There's pockets of Hydra all over the place, but like, how did those guys specifically relate to Hydra?
Yeah, they could have said it.
And from my understanding, Hydra technically is scattered outside of the U.S. because remember there was a guy from Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, that they kind of messed up his base to get Loki's staff, and the rest of them again just kind of dispersed over there in Europe. So was there another group I guess that they're trying to explain?
I guess these guys work for Ward, right? If you watch Agents of Shield, I don't
know. True. I don't know. Yeah. It was weird. I didn't like the fact that Darren Cross just seemed to be like a cutout template of Obadiah Stane. Like he's just this bald, angry man who happens to be running your company. Instead of being a surrogate father like he was to Stark, it's now the surrogate son to Hank Pym. And he has no other character except that he wants to get this thing that only Pym knows, the same way Obadiah Stane couldn't figure out the arc reactor, and Stark made it, and he wants this thing, this tech that he can't have, so that he could sell it and get lots of money, which seemed to be the driving force between these two characters. And then what did the two characters do at the end? They ended up putting on other versions of you have Ironmonger and then you have Yellow Jacket. It's the same fucking thing. They put on the suit, it's the same thing. I'm like, it's the same fucking thing happens. I would have preferred like there was a counter to Scott Lang that maybe Cross hired, maybe a mercenary or something that becomes Yellow Jacket, right? That would have made more sense. Like Lang went through all this training. We watched the montages where he had to shrink through the keyhole and jump out. He had to do all this stuff to train with the ants. Cross doesn't have to do jack shit. He puts on the suit and he immediately knows what to do.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
He controls it. Yeah, I know he designed it, but designing something and then actually using it is two different things. Like he's shooting everyone and he's like flipping out. He's fighting Lang one-on-one. Even though Lang learns to fight, we don't know if this guy knows how to fight, but he instantly knows how to fight. I just felt too like that ending was just too rushed. He puts on the suit, he instantly becomes the bad guy. It's weird.
Like how did he put the suit on that fast? It makes
he fell out of the helicopter, came back in, and he was instantly like dressed.
Yeah, like obviously we're not taking away from the fact that fight sequence was fucking cool. The whole like last third of the movie was fantastic in that regard. You've never seen action like that, but at the same time, the villain was stupid. And Chris, you're right, but I didn't think about it. He's a Z grade fucking Obadiah Stane, man. Like the same shit. Oh man, that's not good. But yeah, I want to talk about because I want to talk about the subatomic particles, the subatomic world. But before that, do we want to get into any of the nitty gritty of the fight sequence itself?
No, I
You
liked
know,
it. I liked the action. I think it was fun. The humor was there, which again is a very Marvel thing to do now. I think they're associated now with their sense of humor and their colorful quote unquote worlds for
Yeah, I
their
wasn't
cinematic
expecting
universe.
him when he took the ping pong paddle and he hit him into the bug
Oh,
zapper.
that was
I was
great. I'm
laughing.
sorry.
I was
That
cracking up.
specifically was hilarious
that
Yeah.
was
because
great.
it was perfect timing.
Yeah, and then you got to see the flip side of it when they're fighting in Cassie's room. They were growing shit, which I think is a little bit of something they're throwing in there for the next movie. If you know what I'm getting at, I'll get into that though. But yeah, it's like they had a giant ant. The fucking train got
Yeah,
really
the
big.
Thomas the Tank Engine bust through the house. That was hilarious.
Yeah, but it made me think. For fall movies, I'm like, okay, because remember now they're showing, hey, you could grow objects, you could grow insects, grow people, maybe. Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly.
It's a giant on.
Yeah, because I think in this movie it's like, okay, accepting that people could shrink, that's enough. I don't think they could just grow giant man. Oh, that would have been too much, But maybe for the next movie they could do that. But yeah, I like the whole sequence because again, it wasn't like okay, we're just gonna be stuck in the little world and just fighting. It was like little world, big world, little world. It was just going insane. I like that. I like the sequence that they're in the briefcase. You see like the lifesavers and the iPhone and stuff, flying around. That was really cool. And then,
Yeah.
you're right with the whole ping pong thing. That was hilarious too, man. And the fucking, by the way, that bug should have died, the ant, because how do you breathe?
I'll tell you right now, that ant that at the end of that sequence that kind of just like walked away. When they said like, "Yo, that's a messed up dog." So I bet you that shows up as a cameo in one of the end credits of the next Marvel movie.
Yeah, right. Imagine that shit. Oh man. Yeah, I want to talk about the subatomic world because this could lead into other things. Obviously in the Marvel universe there is a subatomic realm. I remember there was
the
a time.
microverse, right?
The microverse, exactly.
Yeah.
There was a point where even the Hulk became like the king of the microverse, and he was actually happy because everybody else around him was green too for some reason, So, and then some people were speculating, pure speculation, that they saw eternity in one scene. They're like, oh, you're shrinking into eternity. I don't know about that, but I think that's a whole other realm they could explore, the whole microverse. It'd be very interesting, and it kind of sets up that they may be able to bring back, Janet. At one point, maybe she's still flying around because remember they said the rules of time and space don't apply, so maybe she's still kind of young. I like what Michael Douglas said. He was like, "Hey, if we get original Wasp, can we have my wife do it, Catherine Zeta-Jones? That'd be great." But yeah, what do you guys think of the subatomic world?
Its representation was weird with those. When he got small enough and there was those kind of folding mirror type things.
Yeah.
Like I thought they were gonna go like, oh, there's quantum strings and stuff, and like, how are they gonna represent that in visuals? I didn't know what they were gonna do, and it was kind of weird. And then he folded into that, and I was like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. It's getting trippy, right? Like 2001 with the fucking shit. So then he hears his daughter's voice, and he's in that kind of, I don't know, void with electricity and shit around him, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. I don't know what he's gonna do. Again, that improvisation thing came in handy, right? Because he like fucks with the regulator to get back out, and I was like, okay, like that's kind of cool because that came back in. But I thought it was interesting. Like I didn't know what they were gonna do. Like when he goes past the atom and he got those weird mirror things, I thought, oh, it's like he said, it's like not reality anymore. It's just some kind of weird dream world is going on. I thought that was cool.
I liked it, but again, I talked about this before. I like the fact that again, it was his daughter that brought him back because she was his anchor because she kept calling out to him, and he was like, okay, I got to do something again. Because remember earlier before, it was kind of like Ghostbusters, like don't cross the streams, don't mess with the regulator. He was like, no, I've got to mess with this regulator right now. My daughter's calling me, man. So yeah, that was cool. I'm unsure what they're gonna do with it, but I hope they utilize the subatomic world in some way because there's a lot you can mine from it, especially if you're coming from the books and stuff. There's a lot you could do with the subatomic world, but we'll see how they handle that. So I like that whole thing. Now let's get into the good stuff, the connecting things, the post-credit sequences to be specific. The first one you kind of saw coming, right? Hank Pym finally accepts that his daughter's ready, and he's like, "Hey, me and your mother were building the suit. Now we want to, I want to give it to you." It was like half finished, and that was the second time you saw her give some kind of emotion. She was just like, "Yeah, damn time. It's about damn time." So I like that, and obviously, you know, what I liked about that is like, okay, we're gonna get another female superhero in the Marvel universe. There's only one right now, literally only one.
With another one coming, you know, Captain Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully she'll actually not hopefully. I'm pretty sure she's going to show up in the Civil War, and this is pure speculation on my point. I'm gonna guess she's gonna be on the opposite side of whatever Scott Lang's gonna be, because why are you gonna have two like shrinking people on the same side, right? Got to have them against each other. And she, even though she kind of made out with him, I didn't buy that sequence, by the way. I felt a little forced. But at the same time, you know, she kind of already doesn't like him, so maybe that friction will come back again.
Yeah,
you know?
That was forced for a joke. That was just to get a rise out of Hank Pym, you know? Like, they were kissing each other just so he could make those comments, you know?
Yeah, basically.
That scene. And I did like, okay, the final story from his con buddy, you know, he's like, yo, I was looking at this painting.
Yes.
And my cousin Iglesias, he said, yo, man, I met this girl, and he's like, yo, I know a bunch of guys. I know a guy who crawls up walls, I know a guy who jumps. So I was like trying to figure out I know the guy who crawls up walls. We all know who the fuck she's talking about there.
Dude, they did it. That's Spider-Man. They finally did it in the Marvel universe, man.
So
yeah, it's like, we got a guy who jumps, we got a guy who swings, we got a guy who crawls up walls. Who are the other guys?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Who are the other guys? And then he's like, "No, I want a guy who shrinks." Like, okay. So that's it. That's your into Avengers. Like, that was what they were saying. Oh, with the other scene, was Winter Soldier's arm stuck in a vice? Like, what was he doing?
Yeah, his arm was stuck on something.
He was messed up somehow, and I talked to a friend of mine, and they said, like, you know, maybe that was just like some sort of like battle that had just taken place. Apparently, that was a scene shot specifically for Civil War while they're in production now.
Yes, because you notice
somehow that's related to what's going on.
You notice how when you saw the movie is like in 16:9 aspect ratio, right? Yeah. That sequence is 2:33 aspect ratio. So you're right about that. That scene is from Civil War. You're 100%
exactly.
right about
and
that.
So, I mean, that looks like it was the makings of a battle or something happened big, like at the beginning of Civil War, that just happened. And maybe that's when Cap starts to go out and start recruiting more people towards his cause. Again, going towards Ant-Man, since Falcon knows about Ant-Man now at this point.
Yeah, because he says something specific, like, we could have asked Tony for help a week ago.
And he says no. And he says he doesn't want him.
Yeah,
no, because the accords are in place. I'm like,
yeah.
What accords? What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like something was going down.
Yeah, so they're going to get Scott Lang or Hank Pym to help them.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll be like the scientist-like character, again, because Tony, again, he's a scientist, and he pretty much, you know, he's very smart and stuff. That'll be kind of like that type of character, I guess, to kind of like even up the sides a little bit. At least, you know, granted, Scott Lang is more of a thief and stuff, but again, he has connections to Hank Pym and such, so maybe Hank Pym could also get involved in it as well. Yeah. Again, there's a lot of potential for all these characters to show up somehow and have influence in it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a Civil War, you can't have a Civil War with 6 guys. You need a bunch of dudes. You know, that's why you got Wasp in there. That's why you have Scott Lang in there. You're going to have all these characters in there. But yeah, that scene was interesting because obviously some shit already went down. I think this was already after Civil War maybe already started or is about to begin. Right?
It's like the beginnings of it. Like something behind the scenes that isn't kind of like spreading out right now in the Marvel U is happening at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So they're definitely setting that up, and they want Scott Lang to be involved in that. But before I get to, I want to go back to the other scene of it, because that, see, to me, the first time Lewis was doing the whole thing was like, yo, my buddy said this. Every person that he was talking through was a person like him, right? So it didn't really catch you. And then in the end sequence, you had this you had Falcon talking hood, you had Stan Lee talking hood, you had that Asian woman. It was hilarious, man. I love that. Like, yo, my boy said this, man. Yo, and then homeboy said this.
Yeah,
and I know a guy.
That was hilarious. It's like, yo, those girls at the table look fly, right? And then Stan Lee's like, yeah, they look damn fly.
Yeah, they look super fly.
That was hilarious. Yeah, that was well done.
But yeah, that got me excited because I heard that. I was like, I almost wanted to like, yo, rewind that. Did he just say wall crawling? I know what's going on here. So yeah.
I would kind of love a scene if they're going to do Civil War. If Michael Douglas comes back, if he has a role in Civil War or whatever, I would love to see him and Tony Stark like attacking each other, like like battle of intellects. Because also, you notice what he says in the movie. He's like this. He's like, my stuff isn't some cute technology like Iron Man, right? He just wants to insult him. My shit is dangerous. He's like, it's not cute like Iron Man. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, I like that. And then even at the beginning, he was like, hey, listen, I'm trying to keep this technology away from A-Star. I'm not going to give it to another one. You know, and
Yeah.
like, then he goes, yeah, this is some cute technology. So there's animosity there. So I would love if those two just, dude, Michael Douglas versus Robert Downey Jr. Imagine that shit. Fucking crazy, man. So
Also,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
gotta give mad props to I forgot the actor's name. The guy who plays Howard Stark. He was in Mad Men. He played Roger
Yeah.
Sterling. I love that guy. He's
Yep.
just playing the same character, and he did such a good job. I don't know how they would do it, but I would love a flashback scene, like because you never really see Tony talking to his father or anything. I mean, you only had that other video on what was it, Iron Man 2, when he watches the old reel and his
Yeah, that's the
father was
only one,
explaining
yeah.
stuff. That's it, but they don't actually talk to each other. So it'd be neat if they could somehow do that. And now they know they got that young CG working good. Just take a few years off Robert Downey Jr.'s face, make him look like 80s Robert Downey Jr. and then have him talk
Yeah,
to
right.
that guy.
Oh man, what's the name of the movie he was in with Mel Gibson, the airplane one?
Oh, Air America.
Air America. Make him look like Air America Robert Downey Jr. with like Wall Street era Michael Douglas or something.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I would love that. But yeah, man. I guess final thoughts. Yeah, again, I thought it was a great movie. I was pleasantly surprised because yeah, we were on that point where we're like, is this gonna be Marvel's first like flop? I guess. Now, granted, like box office wise, in America, it did okay. It's still the #1 movie, but it's the worst of the the Marvel movies. Second worst. Hulk was actually the worst as far as first weekend goes, but it still did well overseas. Different story, blowing up. So definitely don't have a dead on their hands. I think they did a good job establishing Scott Lang. And I like how they kind of see. I was worried that every single movie that's been coming out for Marvel, Phase 2 has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I was worried that how would it be if they scale shit back. I think they did a good job. Even though you're right, Chris, it is very reminiscent of Iron Man. Very reminiscent, especially the fucking villain. But
Yeah.
I still think they pulled it off well for the most part. And I mean, dude, when I saw it in the theaters, the second time, people were fucking cheering. I'm like, okay, that's a good reaction. You want that. And I think word of mouth will probably keep the movie going. Like, I think nobody was expecting it to be on the level of Avengers or anything like that, or Guardians of the Galaxy. But I think if you go in expecting a really good heist movie, because it's not a superhero movie, it's a heist movie, you're going to be very, very pleased with this film.
Yeah, I was impressed. Like I said, my only con is Darren Cross / Yellow Jacket. He's the only problem I have with this movie. I don't feel like he's a worthy villain or a fully fleshed out character. I just feel like he's almost a carbon copy of Obadiah Stane. Like, he just took and put him in this movie, and he has almost kind of the same ambitions and revelations and shit. I don't really like him, but everything else in the movie was really good. Lang's relationship with his daughter, the parallels to Hank Pym and his daughter, the Ant-Man technology, how they represented him, how they represented his relationship with the ants, all that stuff. And then, like Tony said, a great heist movie. So I think all that stuff, I didn't go in expecting much, and it delivered a lot more than I thought, especially the humor. And
Yes.
with his crew and all that stuff, him trying to get a job, being out of prison and all that shit, like that was really well done.
Yeah, Baskin Robbins doesn't forget, man.
It's like
Robbins
Baskin
finds out
Robbins.
everything.
Yeah, right.
That's great. Well, overall, just as a movie, I mean, again, I enjoyed myself, watching it. I think it was great. I think that this movie did a couple things right. Number one, it gave me another superhero to kind of pay attention to a little bit, even though it wasn't as good as previous Marvel superhero movies that are just focused on one guy or one character. But also, this one hypes me up for Civil War even more so. And it hyped me up. It got me more excited for the rest of the Marvel movies coming down the line, because not only am I excited to see how a lot of these events kind of like, influence and kind of have fallout for Civil War, or how Ant-Man has any sort of influence in Civil War, because already now at this point he's going to be in it. That's confirmed. But also, in relation to what you were talking about, Tony, with the way how, like, Marvel's been handling, like, all their individual movies, and, like, how people thought this was going to be a flop and such, I think that the true test now, because Marvel seems to be on a hot streak with good movies, not fantastic movies, but like a good series of good movies. I think the test is going to be when Doctor Strange comes out, because Doctor Strange, the thing that's special about Doctor Strange, and again, Doctor Strange I believe is after Captain America, at some point. I think it's right before Black Panther. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right about that. Actually, I know where you're going at this because Doctor Strange, that's the movie that's going to establish magic in the Marvel
Exactly.
universe.
And here's the thing. You got to remember, in Thor, and pretty much throughout the entirety of all the Marvel movies in the cinematic universe, they've established that magic and science are one of the same things. So anything that's done by magic for characters in the comics or in other iterations is done somehow and influenced in some way by science, or is presented in a way that it's actually shown as science. So with Doctor Strange, though, you get into a lot of astral stuff. You get into a lot of specter type of stuff. Dealing with some sort of other dimension stuff that isn't the same as Thor's Asgard or any of the other 9 realms as such. So it's going to be interesting how that kind of relates to everything else going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is only going to make things bigger and I think put things on a grander scale by the time we get to Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah, you know what? Before we wrap it up, I almost forgot about this. I want to talk about the whole Edgar Wright thing because, he obviously left the project almost when it was about to shoot, and I think we all know the reason why, because he really wanted this movie to be its own thing, almost not connected to the Marvel Universe at all, and also was going to have his specific tone to it. And the thing is, his tone, I mean, don't get me wrong, his movies are great. It wouldn't have fit right, and at this point, you can't have a solo Marvel movie anymore. This is about as solo as you're gonna get. But Marvel movies, no matter what genre they're in, they always have a specific tone to it. And I don't think Edgar Wright's tone would have fit right. That really goofy, kind of over the top.
I don't even think it was that though, Tony. I think it was much more so for the fact that it needed to connect to the other Marvel movies because this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're building a universe for these characters to live in. And I think, while Edgar Wright had the right idea as far as making it a good, solid movie.
Yeah, I think remember, most of this movie is still his.
Exactly. Most of it is still his, but I think, for Marvel's grand plan, it needed to fit within its cinematic universe, and it still had to have some sort of connections for it in order to kind of keep up building this universe, building up this world of Marvel characters. And I think that's where they had the disconnect. Because I'm pretty sure going forward now, at this point, all the Marvel movies have to do this. They have to build up this world because they're building up now to Avengers Infinity War. That's their Phase 3 plan.
Yeah, so that's where they had their falling out because he wanted to be strictly on its own, very few connections to it, and have that specific kind of tone that he's known for. It wouldn't have fit at all with it, even a guy like Josh Whedon, he has his specific style, but his style fits with the overall Marvel universe,
Exactly. And also I think this was for the better because I bet you if the movie had come out and it was how Edgar Wright originally envisioned it without much, if any, connections to the other Marvel movies or the cinematic universe and stuff, that would have been the first complaint everybody would have said.
I think so.
Why doesn't this connect to the other Marvel movies? Why doesn't this have any sort of nods or any sort of lead-ins to what's going to be for Civil War or Avengers, etc.?
Yeah, and then I also read Evangeline Lilly, who plays Hope. She even said that she thought the original version of the movie was fantastic, but even she was like, it wouldn't have fit with what Marvel is now doing. I think you're right. We're at the point now where Marvel movies can't just go off on their own like that. I think
there's a general expectation now at this point with the Marvel movies.
You could have smaller movies like this, but it still has to fit and feel like a Marvel
and that's
movie.
Everything Marvel. That's not just the movies. It's the series, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Netflix series, everything.
Exactly.
It has to have some sort of connection because here's the thing, and here's, what I like about Daredevil so much, is that it still is its own tone and its own type of series and story to tell, but there are nods there that are relevant nods that connect it to the overarching Marvel universe. Again, a lot of the stuff that's explains why that world is so messed up is because of the events that happened in New York during Avengers. Yeah. It's things like that make it connect well while still having a connection.
Yeah, and Daredevil, I'm glad you bring that up because that show has a completely different tone than any of the other Marvel properties, but at the same time, it feels like a Marvel property itself,
exactly.
So, but I still think Edgar Wright, again, I'm not saying anything, I like his movies, but I don't think his specific tone would have fit, even if they would have connected it to other more movies, it still would have been off a little bit, because I think his movies lean more towards the satirical and even though this movie is funny, it's not satirical like that,
Exactly. It has a good sense of humor. It's not a comedy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a comedy at all. Exactly. That's the thing. Even with Guardians of the Galaxy, people are like, "Oh, the movie's funny." It is funny, but it's not a comedy. Neither is Ant-Man.
It has the Marvel type of humor, not just humor in general. I think that's the thing, because everything has to be Marvel-esque for these movies.
Yes,
they're Marvel properties. They're Marvel cinematic movies and such.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you watch Ant-Man, even though it's very different than other movies, it still feels like a Marvel.
It's Marvel's Ant-Man. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, yeah, you're right. I'm very excited now, even more so for Civil War than I already was. But then again, see, and let me bring this up because I think that's what Marvel does really well. Because before I saw Age of Ultron, I was like, okay, I'll watch Ant-Man because it's a Marvel movie. Then after I saw Age of Ultron, I got more hyped for Ant-Man. Now watching Ant-Man, I'm even more hyped for Civil War. I think all these movies, they do a good job of hyping you up for the following movie, even if it has nothing to do with it.
For me, that started happening after Cap 2. And I think also, especially after Guardians of the Galaxy, that's become a thing now where you could come out of all the Marvel movies now going forward since then, you really hyped up and really excited for whatever the next movie's going to be. Like, we only have to wait now, I think it's like maybe 4 or 5 months, if not a little bit longer, for Captain America Civil War, right? It comes out in the spring or in the summer?
It comes out in spring, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's not that long of a wait in the grand scheme of things. But everybody's still being excited for where the direction for the cinematic universe is going to go. And that's a great feeling to have. You can't say the same thing about DC technically, in some retrospects. You could say some people, because myself, I'm excited for Batman v Superman and such, but I'm probably not going to come out of Batman v Superman excited to go see Suicide Squad. There's a lot there. Again, there's a whole other discussion with that universe of how it is. But one thing you can say is that every time you see a Marvel movie, you're ready for the next one at some point.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll be back with another spoiler. I don't know what's going to be the next one. Again, these things just come up randomly. We'll definitely do one for Fantastic Four. That's going to be the next.
I about that movie. I really do.
Yeah, we'll see how that one turns out because it could be good, could be bad. We don't know, but that's probably going to be the next spoiler alert. But if anything else happens before that, we'll probably get you guys that good stuff. So once again, I was here with Sonny Polanco, and tonight I was joined by I keep saying tonight, it's fucking day. Chris Seeley.
Hey, take care, everyone.
And JakeJames Lugo.
Thanks for having me. Hope you guys liked it.
All right, guys. Later.
Peace.
Peace.